Okay, everyone, I think shall make a start. So firstly, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining the webinar today, where we'll be looking into HashiCorp and their enterprise solution offerings and some of the key use cases that the software addresses. My name is James Astley, and I'm the Solutions Director at Somerford Associates, having been here for just over 6 years now. Essentially, I'm responsible for each of our vendor relationships and ensuring that our consultants align to our customers' needs and requirements. Joining me today is Andrew Lambert, who is one of the regional VPs at HashiCorp, covering the EMEA markets for just over the past 3 years. Andrew joined HashiCorp from long spells at Puppet and VMware, and will answer any questions you might have from the presentation at the end. As always, if you do have any questions, please put them into the chat section of the webinar, and I shall pick them up for you and ensure they get answered at the end. If you'd like a deeper dive into any of the solution areas that we cover today, I'll be providing details at the end of the webinar for how you can request a dedicated session. And today's webinar will also be recorded and shared with everyone over the next 24 hours. Finally, before I do pass over to Andrew, I just want to say a massive thank you, really, for taking the time to join Somerford and HashiCorp today. I'm very conscious of the fact that there are a number of webinars currently available under the current circumstances. And I hope that we can help expand your understanding of HashiCorp and their solution stack and where Somerford can integrate with that. So I suppose without further ado, let me pass you across to Andrew.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, James. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope everyone's staying well, given the current circumstances that we're all living with. As James said, I'm Andrew Lambert, and I run one of our sales teams here in EMEA. Today, I'm going to walk through the cloud operating model and HashiCorp's approach to unlocking it. We've only got limited time today, so it's going to be fairly high level, but obviously we'll happily arrange any individual follow-ups if you'd like to drill into detail on any aspect of it. I'm also joined by Pedro Coca, the head of solution engineering for Northern EMEA. So between us, we should be able to answer any questions that come up at the end. So are you struggling with any of these today? Essentially, this is why HashiCorp exists and why a new operating model for the cloud is necessary. Most of our customers started talking to us because they're struggling in one or more of these areas. I mean, quite a few of them in all of these areas. If we look at the first one on here, a lot of IT operations teams are feeling pressure from above to move to the cloud faster. But moving fast and safe, maintaining operational and security policies that are important to your business, that's the real challenge. Also, I think most observers will agree that the reality today is multiple cloud providers. Even if it's just private cloud with another public cloud provider, or more likely a mixture of private and AWS and Azure and GCP. Each provides distinctive value, but also each has its own tools and ways of working. So how can you adopt without massively increasing your operational overhead? Similarly, re-platforming your applications or modernizing your infrastructure can be huge exercises and often become overly and unnecessarily complicated. And these are really some of the key challenges that HashiCorp is seeking to solve for you. So when we think about cloud infrastructure automation, we think about the different domains that need to be addressed. How do you provision, secure, connect, and run your applications and their supporting infrastructure? Interestingly, many organizations have heard of our brands like Terraform, Vault, Consul, Packer, and so on, before they're aware that HashiCorp, the company, actually sits behind all of them. Being open source technology, many organizations are surprised to find out that teams within their company have already downloaded and are using some of our tools before we even start talking to them. One thing I do want to make clear is that all of these products can stand on their own and work with other third-party products. We're not saying here that anyone needs to buy everything from us. What we are saying is that when you think about developing a cloud operating model for your business, though, that you should have answers for each of these 4 boxes: provisioning, securing, connecting, and running. And by the way, we just happen to cover all of those with a suite of tools that work extremely well together and have a common language and workflow. So we were founded in 2012, and now we've got approaching 1,000 employees globally. I haven't been here quite 3 years yet, James. I've been here about 2.5 years. But even just last year, we doubled in size. So incredibly fast growth. We're very well funded as a business, and I think that's largely because of the market we target. You know, it's a very hot market at the moment. A lot of organizations are struggling with this shift to cloud, this shift to digitalization in their business, and also because of the results that you'll see on the next slide. In Europe, we're very well set up. So we've also got sales teams here. We've also got extensive support teams. We've got enterprise architecture here in Europe. We've got solutions engineering team represented today by Pedro on the call. And we've got an incredibly strong partner network. And obviously, we're very grateful to Somerford for organizing this event today. Customer-wise, we've got customers large and small. They're not just the giants that we talk about here. But as 2 of the issues we tackle are scale and complexity, we've, of course, attracted some of the largest commercial and government organizations around the world, including, as mentioned here, 7 of the Fortune 10, 8 out of 10 of the largest financial services companies globally, and well over 700 enterprise customers globally. It wasn't that long ago that we only thought in terms of the traditional data center with its dedicated infrastructure surrounded by a secure firewall, kind of like a castle with its moat. Things were relatively stable then, but organizations began to see the benefit of having pools of compute capacity available on demand, the ability to scale up very rapidly and to launch new applications more quickly than the competition. Many, as I said earlier, experimented with private cloud and even single public clouds. But fast forward to today, and most large organizations are operating in a multi-cloud environment, or at least planning for it. Even if they're only using one public cloud provider like AWS or Azure, there's a good chance that their systems of record, by which I mean things like their core business databases or the internal applications they rely on, those may continue to reside on infrastructure in existing data centers. And therefore, by default, it automatically necessitates a multi-cloud approach, even if that's only private and a single public cloud. And this is a pattern we see a lot of, where organizations are drawn to the time to market advantages of public cloud to deliver new systems of engagement for their users or customers. So this could be applications that will generate new revenue for them, or simply applications that improve the experience for their customers. But then the systems of record that those applications connect back into are in existing data centers. And it's this dynamic multi-cloud data center that's the reality for our customers and where they're at various stages of that journey. There's obviously great benefits with cloud adoption. However, there are also some fundamental challenges and concerns as well. So this report is kind of an excerpt from an Accenture report. Probably won't come as too much of a surprise to see these 3 concerns polling so high. In the early days of cloud adoption, a lot of the spend was completely bypassing the infrastructure teams, so-called shadow IT. Accessing cloud was very low friction, and it offered developers a quick way to get things done, avoiding the checks and balances enforced on them by operations and security that might add weeks or months to what they were trying to do. The problem, of course, is those checks and balances were there for a reason. And so as well as optimizing cost, the organizations we talk to also need to ensure that security and governance are watertight. ultimately, when you look at the reason for this shift to cloud, it's to accelerate the application delivery process for these new systems of engagement. So we want the dev teams to experience as little friction as possible, but still ensure that ops, security, and networking teams are satisfied that the right level of governance are in place. This is the essence of DevOps. And if you look at static environments, what we were talking about at the beginning, a lot of organizations are well along on that journey on the static side, adapting their business processes, reorganizing their teams, implementing automation where appropriate. In the dynamic cloud world, things get a little more complicated, and more complicated at each layer of delivery. So at the provisioning layer, operations is moving from having a pool of dedicated servers to having capacity on demand across very different environments in each cloud. Security have been used to operating behind the firewall in a high trust environment. But with cloud, I think it's fair to say it's at best low trust and should probably be treated as zero trust. An IP no longer works as the basis of trust. It has to be based on identity in this new world. Similarly for the other two layers, so networking moves from host-based static IP to a world where static IP no longer exists and networking has to be service-based. And at the run layer, development can now be decoupled from the underlying infrastructure and scheduled across the fleet as appropriate. When we then look at the different tools and models involved in each of these clouds, again, it's different at every layer we look at. So provisioning, as you can see, you look at AWS and Azure and Google and so on, not to mention IBM and Oracle and the others. Each has a unique tool to provision fleets of any size on demand. The security, if you look at the security layer, then each different operator has their own distinct identity model. For networking, each has a proprietary networking model, which is kind of one of the key reasons why people are now looking at service-based overlay models of the networking layer. And then at the run layer, there's multiple offerings here. So obviously, container-based offerings are getting a lot of attention right now with Kubernetes. But we're also seeing organizations invest heavily in emerging concepts like serverless with Lambda, and those probably represent the direction of travel at this layer. The challenge then for any operations security team is, how do I reconcile this reality? So what HashiCorp is doing, we're aiming to simplify this with a central shared services platform with a single control plane at each layer. So I repeat what I said earlier, we can do this at every layer, but we work with what customers have and the design decisions that they've made already. So you can still have a centralized shared service for provisioning and security using Terraform and Vault, for example, even if you happen to be using something else at the other layers. And that applies across the stack. So in this way, we're enabling the transition to cloud for our customers. So if we look at Terraform, Terraform is the world's most widely used provisioner. So we've got close engineering relationships with all the cloud providers, but that also extends to hundreds of dependencies. So things like Datadog, F5, and so on. It uses an infrastructure as code approach, and as code, your infrastructure can be versioned across different teams and environments. You can create approved module registries and enable self-service. And if any of you have or are planning to use ServiceNow, you can take that concept still further. Terraform essentially allows provisioning at speed, but without compromising on the enforcement of your company policies. Vault, so at the security layer, if you look at where we started talking at the beginning in the traditional data center high trust model, a requester or an application that would make a request and a backend system would give the credentials required to get the data for that system. Switch that to the cloud model, and in the cloud's low trust network, that's extremely dangerous. So this is how the vast majority of high-profile security breaches have occurred in recent years. Vault inserts itself into the middle of this flow, and it creates an intermediary step, meaning you can centralize all of your secrets management. And if you wish, even enforce encryption as a service across the piece. So developers don't even have to think about it. And most developers don't particularly like to think about encryption. At the networking layer, so again, looking at the traditional model in the data center, network devices are identified by IP addresses or IP ranges. But trying to make that work in a cloud model is not only very difficult, but expensive. Every time a new application component is deployed, it has to follow several steps. File a ticket to get a new load balancer deployed, deploy the element, that might be a database or a container or something else, to that IP address. Then file a ticket to have the firewall rule updated so that traffic's allowed to that new service. Now that process could take up to 6 weeks. But worse still, it results in huge numbers of load balancers, which are expensive, but also introduce a single point of failure onto your network. Now, Consul takes a completely different approach. It's designed for the cloud world, and it's already been proven to run at huge scale. At the run layer with Nomad, as we said earlier, Nomad is decoupling the complexity of the underlying target environments from what operators and developers have to look at. And it's delivering a simple and flexible workload orchestrator. Importantly, it will work wherever you are on your modernization journey. So it means that even your existing and legacy applications can benefit from modern orchestration without having to be containerized first. So to give you a few examples of what we're talking about here, this is actually a very large telco that we worked with. They were suffering from the classic problem of slow time to get applications out the door. They were averaging 22 weeks and over 70 steps before any application saw traffic, which is obviously the opposite of what we're trying to do in the DevOps and digital transformation world. In this example, they did actually go for the whole stack. So they had shared services that we talked about earlier at each level. And through doing that, they were able to drop the number of steps from 70 down to 1 single step. And the applications were deployed and running in less than 5 minutes. But importantly, still with all of those boxes ticked for governance and policy that the organization needed. If we look at a more specific example around Terraform, so Cruise, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Cruise. Cruise is the autonomous vehicle division of General Motors. When they started, the team relied on a manual process where individual developers requested cloud services through Slack. After receiving the request, the SRE would manually provision the requested service from the relevant provider, and that could have been, multiple public clouds, external service providers. Everything was manual, and they knew that the manual process wasn't going to scale for them, so they switched to Terraform Enterprise, and they can now have thousands of configurations created and updated every week. Again, they can also describe the policies they enforced in code, so all manual steps are removed. If we look at Vault, Adobe is actually a really nice case study on the Vault side. They trust Vault Enterprise to secure their most popular software and digital experiences, which, as you know, are used by millions of people worldwide. Adobe used Vault as a global solution for managing billions of secrets and access requests globally. There's actually a great video of this case study that we can send anybody who's interested, where they talk about the productivity benefits, reduce risk, improve security, and so on in quite a lot of detail. But actually, the quote I like best in the video is that the person in charge can now sleep at night. And then for Consul, we have a great story with Mercedes. So Mercedes are using Consul for service networking to accelerate the delivery of next-gen connected vehicles. So connected cars are obviously part of the buzz around Internet of Things. They're designed to share data in real time with other systems outside the vehicle. Each aspect of that connectivity is powered by a purpose-built app. And each app is powered by an array of microservices that must connect with other services to complete the system. Consul provided the cloud-based centralized service discovery for that system. Now, this is one aspect of what Consul can do. It's a dynamic service registry, so it knows where your services are. It's a dynamic config registry, so it knows what's running on those services. And through its service mesh capability, it can allow your services to talk securely to each other through mutual TLS. So there's a lot of extensibility with Consul. Then finally, for Nomad, we've got Roblox, the gaming company. So Roblox built a platform for 100 million players using Nomad. And Nomad enables Roblox to scale their gaming platform easily and reliably and with minimal resources. So they've only got a 4-person SRE team managing over 11,000 nodes and over 20 clusters globally. So Nomad enabled Roblox to migrate and scale its gaming apps from a dedicated pool of Windows servers to Docker containers. And they reduced the time to deploy the application globally from days to, as it says here, less than 8 minutes. So incredibly fast turnaround. So to summarize, as the implications of the cloud model impact teams across infrastructure, security, networking, and the runtime, what we're seeing is a repeating pattern amongst enterprises and government departments of establishing centralized shared services, these centers of excellence, to deliver the dynamic infrastructure necessary at each layer of successful application delivery. As teams deliver on each shared service for the cloud model, the IT velocity increases. And the greater the cloud maturity the overall organization has, the faster its velocity. So this is the reason we're doing it, to accelerate that execution for the companies that we deal with. I hope that's been useful. That was all I had. I said at the beginning it was going to be fairly high level. We can go into as much detail as you like with questions. But I think, James, we were going to defer the questions until the very end and handle them jointly, were we?
Yes, yeah, we're going to get those all funneled through, and we'll have a Q&A at the end as well. Lovely. Okay, if everyone can see my screen. So just going to very quickly just try and hopefully bring us all back around and show where Somerford fit in this journey, and hopefully give some emphasis and some purpose around why we found the partnership with HashiCorp so exciting and also so important in terms of where we're seeing our customers move. Looking at the image on the screen there, at Somerford, we truly believe the only way we can succeed is if our customers are successful. When we ask our customers, what makes Somerford different to many other technology resellers and implementation partners, we hear sort of 3 core areas coming back at us, and that's our solutions, our people, and our customers. So I'm just going to dig a bit deeper into each of those areas and expand on each, and hopefully show you how we're hopefully supporting some of our customers. So starting on solutions. So at Somerford Associates, we have a portfolio of market-leading technologies that are disruptive and span data, security, identity, and analytics. These solutions are best in class, and you'll often see them in the top right of the Gartner Magic Quadrant or Forrester Wave, driving actionable innovation within each of their markets. And in the current challenges and dynamic IT landscape, organizations are having to and being forced to accelerate their cloud migration and their adoption strategies, moving to hybrid infrastructures, applications, and often within a complex range of in-house and also outsourced capabilities and services. With our technology portfolio, our security clear consultants help build and integrate platforms that significantly reduce risk and drive productivity for our customers. And it's for that exact reason that I'm so excited by the partnership with HashiCorp, who align perfectly to our customers' needs. and helping to implement automation and standardization of their multi-cloud infrastructures. This is supported by Somerford's program methodology of deploy, run, secure, monitor, and report, which, if you go back a couple of slides, probably is not too far in line with HashiCorp. We're also seeing a strong integration story across a lot of our partnerships. So, for example, we work with a lot of organizations where we see Splunk for SIM and analytics, Okta for identity or IDaaS, and now very pertinent, HashiCorp Vault for secrets management. And that story is becoming more and more current. And it's very useful for us to be able to have that ability to span across those different areas and hopefully bring it all together. Okay, moving on. Should hopefully be on to our people. Simply put, we have a world-class technical team and in-house support capability. On screen now are just some of the capabilities that Somerford provides our customers, ranging from dedicated hands-on workshops and knowledge transfer sessions to working with our customers to reduce operational dependencies so that you can take control of your investments. Our in-house support team is dedicated to resolving support cases without the need to escalate issues to the actual vendor. In fact, 80% of our support calls raised are resolved without the need for further escalation. And finally, our professional services team are certified and trained to the highest standards set by our partners and ensure latest practices of delivery, combined with a wide range of industry expertise, which we also hear is highly important to our organizations we work with. So not just having certifications, not actually having the technical knowledge, but actually being able to understand how it fits within that vertical. Alongside our implementation services, our project management teams are also certified in several delivery methodologies to ensure that, again, we can align and meet our customers' needs. And finally, moving on to the last area, which is our customers themselves. We support a broad range of FTSE 100 and FTSE 250 organisations, central government, agencies, and defence. And we are trusted by some of the UK's largest and most innovative organisations across each of these sectors. This brings huge value in our understanding of how our technology should be implemented across a range of verticals, environments, and architectures. And we work with many organisations that have similar IT strategies, objectives, or goals, but each of their requirements have to be specific to them. We need to understand how we can take the technology, but actually make it specific to what our customers need. And we're very fortunate that many of our customers are very happy to collaborate and share in their expertise and knowledge. And we host a large range of roundtable events, Q&A sessions, and executive briefings, which, again, you can see a lot of those listed on our website, and a lot of those will also be sent out throughout the course of the year. So just moving forward, and just before we jump into some of the questions that have come through, and see there has been a couple that have just come through, just looking at some of our future events. So you should see there that there's a HashiCorp toolset and hands-on Terraform workshop that's coming up next. That's scheduled to be on the 2nd of July. And again, that'll be you'll be able to register for that event on our website, but also there'll be more information sent out. So if you register for today's event, you'll also receive information on how you can register for that as well. And I think, without further ado, I think that's pretty much it. And just say sort of thank you for everyone attending, and we'll just jump into a few of the questions that have been raised. I've got one here for provisioning by code. I guess the idea is to decentralize and have self-service provisioning. But how do companies control the cost or put processes around these actions?
But basically, there's a couple of phases in a Terraform workflow. So is the plan and the apply. So the cost estimation will kick in between those phases. And regarding the centralized and the decentralized approach, you can have the flexibility to create certain logical entities in Terraform, so you can get the level of freedom, that degree of independence, but you at the same time can apply the policy as code to particular workspaces, or that particular logical wrappers to the global organization. So you can have full control, but also allowing that decentralization and that freedom, that degree of freedom.
Brilliant. Thanks very
So
much,
to
Andre.
answer the question, so it's not, you don't necessarily open it up to completely unfettered use. If you're moving to self-service, you can control that within policy and set that as code, so it's automatically enforced.
Exactly. So if you have you can have some rules that will be applied automatically, and there's also some degrees of enforcement. So you can have a hard policy, a soft policy, and like an advisory policy. So you can just give some information, some advice about your deployment. Like for instance, add some tags to this deployment. You can add something that can be overridden by an administrator, like, okay, you shouldn't spend more than £1,000 on a deployment, but you are between 1,000 and 5,000. Maybe if your manager approves that, then it's okay. Or something that no matter if you are the admin of the tool, you cannot do that, like deployed in the middle of the weekends at night, something that you can define, and that cannot be overridden. So there's a wide variety to model the policy and the framework of controls.
Brilliant. Just an expansion on that question there. And also, what are some of the biggest adoption issues? What are some of the biggest adoption issues? Let's take Terraform, because that's going to be an early starting point for a lot of our customers on their journey.
Yeah, well, indeed, those comments can be even extrapolated to the rest of the products, because we have this crawl, walk, run approach for our tools. And the biggest challenges in terms of adoption, and there's a clear adoption journey in Terraform, is that whenever you are moving from a closed feedback loop, like small teams of developers or even single practitioners, to a more complex environments. So in those moments, you really need policy as code. You really need cost estimation. So those things are often the main challenges, and but those challenges are resolved by our enterprise version. So whenever you have like organizational challenges, that is often what we see in many cases in Vault as well, in Console. The enterprise versions are exactly addressing those challenges to operate the tools at a scale.
Brilliant. And I haven't got any other questions coming through, but I do have one for myself, actually. Just what I thought I'd pose around Vault, actually. So understanding that a lot of organizations are probably coming from the open source offering of Vault, and as they continue on that journey, then they're obviously looking at how they transition and move through to the enterprise version of Vault. So it'd be really good just to hear maybe just some of the most common scenarios in which that transition happens, and typically where you see that tipping point, and why organizations might move from the open source version of Vault into the enterprise version for HashiCorp.
Yeah, so it's in the same vein, probably organizational requirements, organizational complexity. So the technical problem is always solved with open source, and there are just a few features that address the organizational challenges. So whenever you need some kind of data sovereignty mechanisms in place, because you are operating your Vault clusters in different jurisdictions, whenever you have some requirements around business continuity planning, disaster recovery, all those things required enterprise features like replication, data filters, and all those things. Whenever you need to be able to leverage something that is called an HSM, a hardware security module, for high levels of entropy, high levels of randomness when you generate your crypto materials, your keys, all those things that are in general advanced data protection use cases or organizational complexity use cases, is when Vault Enterprise shows the real value, instead of trying to build some scaffolding around the open source. And that's basically the pattern. Whenever the organizational complexity, the advanced data protection patterns show up in a large organization, is when Vault Enterprise comes in.
That's brilliant. I really appreciate that. Some good answers there. I can't see any other questions coming through. So if anyone does have any further questions, you'll see on the screen there, you've got both myself and Andrew's email addresses. So please do feel free to file those through. And as I said, please look out for the future events that will be posted on the website. with the forthcoming workshops, and we do hope to see you on one of our events again very soon in the future. So all the best, and thank you for attending. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Yeah,
Pleasure for jumping on.
Just to add very quickly at the end, James, sorry. I saw that John Boero is doing the follow-up on Terraform. I would urge any of you who are interested to join those individual product sessions, because today we have covered at high level 4 pretty big domains in their own right. So, just the last 2 we've talked about, provisioning and security. We can go into a lot of detail around each of those. So hopefully Somerford and Hashi will be running some more kind of deep dives beyond just the Terraform one very soon.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Good. Thank you very much, everybody.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.